Hello, I'm Matt Galloway, and this is the Current Podcast. It has been 6 days since Israel began its assault on Iran. Earlier this week, Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, threatened to make the Iranian state broadcaster, in his words, disappear, and Iranian viewers saw the ensuing attack live on air. Hundreds in Iran are dead, thousands more wounded, and residents in Tehran are deciding whether to leave the city or to stay. We have reached one Iranian Canadian in Iran today, and we're withholding her name because her family is worried for their safety and about being prevented from crossing the border out of Iran. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. Can you tell me where are you right now?
Right now, I'm in Tehran, Iran.
Okay. And how are you doing?
I'm full of stress now. So far, so good. But me and our family are full of stress.
Tell me what it's like there. I mean, if you were to look out your window right now, what would you see?
Actually, we are in our apartment in Saadatabad in Tehran, and we closed the windows because it's very dangerous. Just we can hear all the sounds outside, like the sounds of bomb and like explosion near us.
You can hear that right from your apartment?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about, you said it's very dangerous. I mean, how close are those explosions to where you are?
One of the sound was about like 500 meters far from us, and about like 20 people killed in that building.
You lived in Canada for a long time, for almost a decade or so. Tell me about moving to Tehran. Why did you move there?
Actually, because of my son, he is in high school now. I want to study my son in Tehran, in Iran, to be prepared for university in Canada, and because I think that they study here very well, and I want my son to study in IB program for university, and unfortunately, this happened here.
And so what happens now to you? I mean, are you going to stay in, you've said that that's very dangerous and you're full of stress. Are you going to stay?
No, actually, we want to leave Tehran, but there is a road already crowded and it's busy, and there isn't enough gas to just reach out to one of the board. The board is very far from us. We need maybe 2 or 3 tanks. So we are just waiting. Maybe the road be very clear to move faster.
Why did you decide that you had to leave Tehran?
Here is really danger. All the night we cannot sleep at all because each night we are waiting to just a bomb come to our apartment. Really, because the bomb when it's coming down, it doesn't clear that where it's just be exploded or heated.
And so you worry that the bombs will get closer and closer and could eventually perhaps hit your building. Exactly.
Yes.
You mentioned how difficult it is to get gas. What about other supplies? I mean, can you get food, for example?
Food, just one supermarket, one store is near us. That one just is open right now. All the other stores are closed because people just run out from Tehran. They just be far from Tehran to be safe.
What is that like when you leave the apartment to go to the store to buy food? What is it like out on the streets?
Nobody is in the street. We just walk it's about 2 minutes far from us. We just walk, we run and go purchase something and come back. That's it.
If you are able to get gas for the car, where will you go?
We have to go to the Turkey or Baku, Azerbaijan, any country that is near us. Just we want to pass the board and just find a flight to come to Canada.
That's kind of where you want to end up, is ultimately coming back here to Canada.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Canada is my second home. It's my country.
How difficult do you think it will be to be able to get out? I mean, do you think you'll be able to find the fuel to be able to get to Turkey or to Azerbaijan?
It really is hard. From this destination, from my home, from my apartment to Turkey, it's about 800 kilometers, about 2 days drive. And then we have to pass the border by walk. And the other side of the other country, we have to find another taxi or a driver to reach out the nearest airport to find a flight or a ticket to come to Canada. I think that there is a flight from Istanbul, and from the border to Istanbul, again, is 2 days drive, and maybe 4 days we are on the way.
Do you know people who have already left Tehran to try to get to Turkey or to Azerbaijan?
Yes, there is a lot of people here that they reach out there, and some of our friends just leave about last week or 5 days ago, but just we are waiting to find a nearest way or very smooth way to be there, because I have a son. I don't want he has a lot of stress on the way as well.
Yeah. What have your friends told you about what that journey has been like to try to get out of Iran?
They said that the board is really, really busy, and they stay over there maybe 1 day. They are on the board to find the visa. But I know that we don't need any visa because of our passport, for Canadian passport. But they are waiting for the long, long lines over there. So we are just waiting.
You mentioned your son, and we spoke with your son yesterday. Take a listen to this.
I took a lot of stress management trying to prepare myself for this exam, and then hearing it got canceled really broke me a little bit. I feel like it'll be a bit dreadful knowing I'm leaving this life behind myself, because we actually took a lot of time building it back up from scratch again, but nothing much we can do about it there.
How are you managing the stress? I mean, it's a lot on your son, but it's a lot on you too.
I have to turn off the TVs and news because I don't want he knows everything about this country. We just read a book or stay together with some cards, something that we can just manage the time and his stress.
And if you aren't able to get out, what will you do?
I don't know. We have just run away from Tehran. I don't know where. Maybe any other cities or even the countries just outside of Tehran. I want to be in a safe place.
Thank you for talking to us. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you for agreeing to speak with us.
Thank you, and I appreciate it for your time and for this interview.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's an Iranian Canadian in Tehran. We are withholding her name because her family is worried for their safety and about being prevented from crossing the border out of Iran. The CBC's Margaret Evans is in Jerusalem this morning. Margaret, hello to you.
Hi, Matt.
We heard the situation in Iran, and we'll go back there in a moment because you were there. But what is it like where you are in Israel right now?
Well, I'm in Jerusalem. The streets are extremely empty for this city. It's the same throughout much of the country. There are still missiles, barrages of missiles coming through. Over about 2 this morning, had an alert on our phones. Israelis are equipped with pretty good warning systems. You can download an app which will tell you that missiles have been fired. They can pinpoint where you are, and then they give you a timed warning about how much time you have to get into a shelter. It's something that has become systemized for many Israelis, but that's the situation. People are paying attention to those warnings. There have been about 24 people, though, who have been killed by Iranian missiles that have made it through, Israel's very sophisticated defense system and had direct hits.
This war with Iran comes, 20 months after the Hamas attack on the 7th of October and Israel's subsequent campaign in Gaza. What are you hearing from Israelis about support for this operation in Iran? One of the things that we've heard is that Israelis are exhausted by the war, and many of them, given the fact that there are hostages still being held. Benjamin Netanyahu has not been particularly popular. What are you hearing about the support, such as it may be, for what's happening now in Iran?
Well, there's a real differentiation amongst Israelis about how they view the two conflicts. As you say, for many Israelis, the conflict in Gaza is about seeing the Israeli hostages returned home. And certainly there's fatigue factor, and they've been feeling the growing international censure trickling through to a media that doesn't often report on it, about the suffering of the Palestinians, more than 50,000 dead. But if you talk to people about that conflict, what they want to know is the hostages. One person said to me, when I was in the shelter, I thought about the hostages being held in Gaza. If you talk to them about the Iran conflict, most of them, vast majority of Israelis support Israel's attempt to take what they see as an existential threat out of the picture. It's something that they have had in their lives for decades. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been warning about that threat, saying that it is real.
You were recently in Iran, and it's worth mentioning that in part because you were one of the very few Canadian journalists to be granted access to that country in years. We just heard from that Iranian Canadian who said that it's not fair what's going on. She says, in her words, we aren't the government. I don't know whether you've connected at all with some of the people that you met when you were there. I just wonder if you have what you hear from them about how they're holding up in this.
Yeah, I've been in touch with one friend in particular. There's a lot of worry, obviously, on the streets. This is someone who would like to leave Tehran if he can. Of course, there have been all these warnings, basically by Israel and the U.S. President Donald Trump saying, get out for your own safety. A lot of people can't do that. Your previous guest was talking about fuel. He's got half a tank of gas in his car. Can't get very far with that. His family is far away. He simply can't leave. And so those are the worries. And they also hear the kind of the rhetoric that's coming from Israel, get out, or we're coming to take the city. And that's, obviously sparks real fear. I should also mention that one of the people that we spoke to, Ali Shamkhani, was one of the first people to be assassinated by the Israelis when they began their attacks. This is a former naval officer, a very senior politician who is an advisor to the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. And he, of course, that was seen as a message to him. He was also the person overseeing the negotiations between the United States and Iran on a nuclear deal, negotiations that were due to begin on the weekend just after Israel began its attacks. And that, of course, was seen as a message, as we've seen these threats, even from the U.S. President Donald Trump saying, we know where the supreme leader is. This assassination of Ali Shamkhani was seen as an early signal that they're getting close to the supreme leader.
Can you just briefly talk about the involvement of the U.S. president? He was here in Canada at the G7, left early, ostensibly because of this conflict. He has talked about how he wants Iran's unconditional surrender, in his words. How is his influence being felt on the ground, both in Iran but also in Israel?
I think certainly in Iran, where I think that there was a genuine desire to have a deal, a need to have a deal, because it is a country in extreme economic straits. It's been, under these sanctions for decades. But what you're hearing now from the hardliners in particular, who were not in favor of a deal with the United States, saying, look at this. I mean, we were negotiating with the Americans, and they've said that they're not involved, but we've got these comments coming from the U.S. President Donald Trump. Why would we trust him? So you have that on one side, and of course, it increases the fear for ordinary Iranians when they're hearing this, this same kind of get out of town kind of message from the Americans. In terms of Israel, I think that there's also confusion because on the one hand, just last week he was saying he wants a deal, it's achievable, and now he seems to be talking about we have air superiority over Tehran. And so there is confusion there. Obviously, the Israeli government wants and hopes that the Americans will come in on this fight, because they say that the purpose of this, from their point of view, is to issue, a preemptive strike at Iran's nuclear capabilities. To do that, they have to attack the Fordo nuclear facility, which is deep, deep, deep underground. And the thought is that To do that, they would need U.S. bunker bombers. Now, Israeli officials today were saying they think that they will address that facility, but they were also saying they think that they can reach their goals in a couple of weeks, which is earlier than what they've been saying before. So everybody, I'd say the whole region is sitting, in trepidation in some cases and in anticipation in others, waiting to see what the U.S. President Donald Trump says. And I should say, not everybody in Israel supports this notion that we're hearing about regime change. I did speak to one opposition politician yesterday who said, that's unnecessary. He believes that they do have to remove a nuclear threat. Of course, I need to say as well that Iran insists that it has the right to pursue nuclear power as any other signatory to international treaties on nuclear non-proliferation. They say they're not trying to go for the bomb.
Margaret, appreciate this. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Margaret Evans is the CBC's senior international correspondent. She's in Jerusalem. You've been listening to The Current podcast. My name is Matt Galloway. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you soon.